Hi everybody, it's another literacy lesson. Make sure that you've got your pen, paper, whatever you need, and we're going to start straight away with a vocab blast. Now today's vocab blast is going to be a little bit tricky because we're going to first of all talk about the words that we learnt yesterday, and then we're going to see if we can remember the words that we learnt on Monday. I know, and there were a lot of words, weren't there? Let's see how we get on, okay? There's no such thing as a bad mistake. Mistakes help us to learn. So don't worry if you don't get them right straight away. Just make sure you've got your best listening ears on so that you can learn for the future. So, the first word. This word means picking up or grabbing something suddenly. Can you remember what this word is? Well done, it's seizing. Jack seized the axe and chopped down the beanstalk. Seizing, he was grabbing it. What about this next one? This is a picture of a tool that is used for chopping wood. What do we call this object? Brilliant, it's an axe. Jack was seizing the axe to chop down the tree. And the last one. We've got a picture of a strong man and he is holding up these weights with a lot of force. What other word could we use instead of with a lot of force? What is this word, sorry? The strong man held up the weights mightily. Well done if you remembered that. We could even make a sentence here, just like in Jim and the Beanstalk, and say Jim was seizing the axe and swung it mightily into the beanstalk. Now, this is where it gets tricky. Can we remember the words that we learnt on Monday? Let's give it a try. This word means make a noisy biting or chewing action and have a picture of a horse doing this action. It's called champing. Well done if you remembered that. Champing. The horse was champing at the bit. He was champing. The next word is what this lady's job is. It's an old-fashioned word for an optician, somebody that makes glasses. What do we call this person? Brilliant, they're an oculist. This last word is a desire to eat. The giant suddenly remembered his appetite and he decided he was going to eat Jim. So the appetite, you can have a really good appetite where you want lots of food, or sometimes you can even have a bad appetite where you're not hungry at all. The next word, this means grinding your teeth together, usually to show anger. What is this man doing? He's gnashing his teeth. Well done. This word means violently. The wolf is protecting the other wolf violently. But we don't have to use the word violently. The word I'm thinking of is fiercely. Brilliant. The wolf is fiercely protecting the other wolf. The next word, it means an untidy bundle. The clothes were in a heap. Fantastic. And the last one, someone that is annoying you or causing trouble. We say that they are pesky. Brilliant. They are very tricky, but I'm so impressed at how many you've been able to remember. Well done. So, starting off our literacy lesson, let's recap the story. I've got some pictures here and a story mountain to help you. I want you to tell somebody in the room what happens in the story. You can use the pictures to help you. Pause the video, tell somebody what happens in the story, Jim and the Beanstalk. Great stuff, well done. So I'm going to quickly whiz through it. Jim wakes up and finds a beanstalk growing outside of his house. He decides to climb it. When he gets to the top, he finds a castle in the clouds and he meets a giant. Jim helps the giant to get some glasses to help him see better. Then Jim helps the giant to get some new teeth because his have all gone. Finally, Jim helps the giant to get a wig for his bald head. The giant is so happy with his new look that his appetite has returned and he says he's going to eat Jim. Jim runs away as quickly as he can. He chops down the beanstalk with an axe, and the giant drops him a gold coin to say thank you for helping me. Well done if you remembered the story. When we are sequencing events, just like what we've just done, what kind of words can help us to organise them? I said a few, I'll give you a clue. First, Jim helped the giant get some glasses. Then he helped him get some new teeth. Finally, he helped him get a new wig. What do we call those words? First, then, finally. Can you remember? Brilliant, well done. They are time adverbials. Let's repeat that together. Time adverbials, your turn. Time adverbials, your turn. Fantastic. So time adverbials tell us, something happened. They tell us when something happened. Well done if you remembered that. Time adverbials tell us when something happened. I've got a few examples now that I'm going to show you, and I want you to have a think. Can you think of any more? Ooh, got that one twice. Once upon a time, one day, that very day, in the end, eventually, after a while, and in the morning. Can you think of any other time adverbials? Words that tell us when something happened? Maybe you could tell some to somebody in the room, or write a few down on the piece of paper in front of you. Pause the video, have a go, see if you can think of just one more, even if you're struggling. Brilliant, well done. So we could have lots of others. We could have next, then, after that. Well done if you got some. Now we've learnt about time adverbials before, but they don't just tell us about time. We can also use adverbials that tell us about place. So instead of being called time adverbials, we call them place adverbials. Let's practice saying that. Place adverbials, your turn. Place adverbials, your turn. Fantastic. Place. Think about what a place is. Time adverbials tell us about when something happened. Place adverbials tell us about where something happened. Fantastic. Because they tell us about the place that they happened. I've got a few examples again for you. At the top of the beanstalk, can you see how we're telling them where that is? It's the top of the beanstalk. It's where something happens in the story. Outside the window. At the bottom of the beanstalk. In the garden. In the castle. What other place adverbials can you think of? Write a few down on your piece of paper, or maybe tell some to an adult. See if you can come up with one. Well done. Maybe you said something like, in the clouds, on the street, in Jim's house. There are lots of different place adverbials you could have thought of. What I'm going to ask you to help me with now is retelling the story again, but this time we're going to use some of those adverbials to help us. We've got some time adverbials. In one morning, later that day, one day, that same day, a few hours later, once upon a time, before long, after a while, just then, in the end, outside the window, at the top of the beanstalk. Oh, we're starting to do place adverbials now. Outside the window, at the top of the beanstalk, at the bottom, in the clouds, in the castle. So, let's think about how we can retell this story. All I'm going to do is I'm going to write one sentence next to each picture. How does the story start? Choose an adverbial that I could use to start my story. It could be a time adverbial, or it could be a place adverbial. Choose one, write it down, or tell somebody in the room, what could I use to start my story? Fantastic. There are lots of ways I could have started this, and it's a shame that you're not here to tell me what the ways are that you've thought of. But that's okay, because I'm going to tell you what I decided to use instead. Okay, so I'm going to start off by saying, once upon a time. I've decided to say that because I think this story is very much like a fairy tale, and I think that's a good way to start a fairy tale. Once upon a time, what happened? Brilliant. Jim discovered a beanstalk. Now, if I wanted to, I could also use a place adverbial here, not just a time adverbial. I've started with my time adverbial, but I could end with my place adverbial. Once upon a time, Jim discovered a beanstalk. Where? Fantastic. Outside the window, in the garden, outside of his house. Full stop. And it's as simple as that. That's all I'm going to do. I've written one sentence to retell this part of the story. What happens next? Oh, this is the part where Jim meets the giant at the top of the beanstalk. I want you to have another think again. What adverbial could I use to start this sentence? I have already used once upon a time and outside the house. Can you think of a different one I could use? Brilliant, well done. I'm going to just start with at the top of the beanstalk. What happened at the top of the beanstalk? Fantastic. At the top of the beanstalk, Jim met a giant. Oops, spelt beanstalk wrong. Silly Miss Mannion. At the top of the beanstalk, Jim met a giant. Is that it? Am I done? Yeah, I could leave it there. I could put a full stop. I might want to say, and he went into his house. Or I might just want to leave it there and just say Jim met a giant. It's just one sentence. Oh, I thought I was going to sneeze then, but it seems to have disappeared. Once upon a time, Jim discovered a beanstalk outside of his house. At the top of the beanstalk, Jim met a giant and he went into his house. Ooh, Actually, now that I've read that, I've said his house quite a few times, so I'm just going to stop at Jim met a giant. Let's move on to the next part. Okay, what happens next in the story? Fantastic. Jim helps the giant get some glasses. Let's think of an adverbial I can use here. Am I going to use a time adverbial or a place adverbial? Fantastic. We already know that Jim's inside the castle with the giant, so we might not really use a place adverbial here, but we might use a time adverbial. Think of a time adverbial I could use. Write it down or tell somebody in the room. Brilliant, well done. So I'm going to say, after a while. I'm not making any spelling mistakes because I am checking carefully on my word map. After a while, Jim helped the giant buy some glasses. What did the giant need the glasses for? To read his poetry. So after a while, Jim helped the giant buy some glasses so that he could read his poetry book. Now that's a really long sentence. I didn't have to do that. I could have just said, after a while, Jim helped the giant buy sunglasses. Full stop. But I've decided I want to write a little bit more on this one. What happens next? Oh, this is when Jim helps him find some teeth. So let's think of another time adverbial I could use. Remember, time adverbials tell me when something happened. I don't want a place adverbial, I want a time adverbial. Think of another one I could use. I've already used once upon a time and after a while. Brilliant, there are lots of different ones I could use. I'm going to go for later that day. Later that day, Jim helped the giant get some new teeth. Full stop. One sentence. Let's read through it all so far. If you want to join in with your Kung Fu punctuation, then you can. Once upon a time, Jim discovered a beanstalk outside of his house. Bang. At the top of the beanstalk, Jim met a giant. Bang. After a while, Jim helped the giant buy some glasses so that he could read his poetry book. Bang. Later that day, Jim helped the giant get some new teeth. Now what's next? Pick a time adverbial to describe what happened next. Fantastic. I could just use next, or I could choose something different. It's up to the writer. So now I'm going to say a few hours later. A few hours later, Jim helped the giant find a bright red wig. Full stop. And then the last thing that happened was Jim ran away because the giant had suddenly got his appetite back and said he was going to eat Jim. What time adverbial could I use to start this sentence? Well done. I'm going to go for, in the end, the giant said he would eat Jim, so he ran away and landed where? Think of a place adverbial I could use this time. Where did he land? Brilliant. He landed at the bottom of the beanstalk. There we go. We're going to read it all the way through and check that we're happy with it. Once upon a time, Jim discovered a beanstalk outside of his house. At the top of the beanstalk, Jim met a giant. After a while, Jim helped the giant buy some glasses so that he could read his poetry book. Later that day, Jim helped the giant get some new teeth. A few hours later, Jim helped the giant find a bright red wig. In the end, the giant said he would eat Jim, so he ran away and landed at the bottom of the beanstalk. Thank you so much for your help. Today's 3-star challenge is to do exactly the same thing that I've just done. You're writing one sentence about each part of the story, and you're going to try to use time adverbials and place adverbials in each of your sentences. You can write more than one sentence in each box if you want to, but I expect everybody to write at least one. If you are doing the 2-star challenge today, you are also writing what happened at each part in the story. You can use the word frame to help you, but some of the words are missing. Okay, so you need to think carefully about whether or not it makes sense as you're reading it. You could start by saying, one day, Jim climbed. He didn't climb the door, he climbed the beanstalk. One day, Jim climbed beanstalk. Does that make sense? No, so we need to make sure we put in those extra words that might be missing. So one day, Jim climbed a beanstalk. And then you can write that into the first box, and you are just writing one sentence. Finally, we've got the 1-star challenge. You are also completing this, retelling the story with one sentence in each box. But you have got some sentences that are all scrambled up that you need to unscramble to figure out what to write. So, here is the first one, just to help you. Jim, one day a beanstalk climbed. Does that make sense? No, let's put it in the right order. What is going to come first? Fantastic. One day is going to come first because it starts with a capital letter, and we're also using this as a time adverbial to start us off. One day, Jim a beanstalk climbed. No, 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 we need the one with the full stop to come at the end. One day, Jim climbed a beanstalk. Perfect, I'm going to write that on there. Or you could just stick that in the right order. If you're stuck and you're not sure what the order is for the sentence, you have got these on your sheet to help you, and it tells you which colours need to come after each other. That's for the first sentence. The second sentence is similar, but the third one, the fourth one, and the fifth one all have more words in. So again, you've got this to help you. The first thing that we are going to start with is the time adverbial, which is red. So that's going to come at the start of our sentence. We know that our sentence needs to end with a full stop, so that's going to come at the end of the sentence. Then, what's going to be next? Then by helped he the giant glasses. Then He helped the giant buy glasses. Okay, so you're thinking about what the order of the words needs to be and you're putting them in the right places. Everybody is going to use this sheet. Okay, you then will also need the 1-star, 2-star or 3-star challenge sheets to help you write your sentences, but everybody is doing it on this sheet. You will find all of those on the school website to help you. And I'll see you again tomorrow for another literacy lesson. Bye!